이것은 2022년 고2 9월 모의고사 20번인데요. 여기서부터 그냥 영어로만 줄줄 읽어볼게요. 여러분 심심할 때 한번 들어보세요. We usually take time out only when we really need to switch off. And when this happens, we're often overtired, sick, and in need of recuperation. Me time is complicated by negative associations with escapism, guilt, and regret, as well as overwhelm, stress, and fatigue. All these negative connotations mean we tend to steer clear of it. Well, I'm about to change your perception of the importance of me time to persuade you that you should view it as vital for your health and well-being. Take this as permission to set aside some time for yourself. Our need for time in which to do what we choose is increasingly urgent in an overconnected, overwhelmed, and overstimulated world. 21번. Perhaps worse than attempting to get the bad news out of the way is attempting to soften it or simply not address it at all. This mom effect, a term coined by psychologists Sidney Rawson and Abraham Tesser in the early 1970s, happens because people want to avoid becoming the target of others' negative emotions. We all have the opportunity to lead change, yet it often requires of us the courage to deliver bad news to our superiors. We don't want to be the innocent messenger who falls before a firing line. When our survivor instincts kick in, they can override our courage until the truth of a situation gets watered down. The mom effect and the resulting filtering can have devastating effects in a stiff hierarchy, writes Robert Sutton, an organizational psychologist. What starts out as bad news becomes happier and happier as it travels up the ranks, because after each boss hears the news from his or her subordinate, he or she makes it sound a bit less bad before passing it up the chain. 22번. Most parents think that if our child would just behave, we could stay calm as parents. The truth is that managing our own emotions and actions is what allows us to feel peaceful as parents. Ultimately, we can't control our children or the obstacles they will face, but we can always control our own actions. Parenting isn't about what our child does, but about how we respond. In fact, most of what we call parenting doesn't take place between a parent and child, but within the parent. When a storm brews, a parent's response will either calm it or trigger a full-scale tsunami. Staying calm enough to respond constructively to all that childish behavior and the stormy emotions behind it requires that we grow too. If we can use those times when our buttons get pushed to reflect, not just react, we can notice when we lose equilibrium and steer ourselves back on track. The inner growth is the hardest work there is, but it's what enables you to become a more peaceful parent one day at a time. 23번. We have already seen that learning is much more efficient when done at regular intervals, rather than cramming an entire lesson into one day. We're better off spreading out the learning. The reason is simple. Every night, our brain consolidates what it has learned during the day. This is one of the most important neuroscience discoveries of the last 30 years. Sleep is not just a period of inactivity or a garage collection of the waste products that the brain accumulated while we were awake. Quite the contrary, while we sleep, our brain remains active. It runs a specific algorithm that replays the important events it recorded during the previous day and gradually transfers them into a more efficient compartment of our memory. 24번. From the earliest times, healthcare services have been recognized to have two equal aspects, namely clinical care and public health care. In classical Greek mythology, the god of medicine, Asclepius, had two daughters, Hygeia and Panacea. The former was the goddess of preventive health and wellness, or hygiene, and the latter the goddess of treatment and curing. In modern times, the societal ascendancy of medical professionalism has caused treatment of sick patients to overshade those preventive healthcare services provided by the less heroic figures of sanitary engineers, biologists, and governmental public health officers. Nevertheless, the quality of health that human populations enjoy is attributable less to surgical dexterity, innovative pharmaceutical products, and bioengineered devices than to the availability of public sanitation, sewage management, and services which control the population of the air, drinking water, urban noise, and food for human consumption. The human right to the highest attainable standard of health depends on public healthcare services no less than on the skills and equipment of doctors and hospitals. 다른 거 필요 없고 29번. By noticing the relation between their own actions and resultant external changes, infants develop self-efficacy, a sense that they're agent of the perceived changes. Although infants can notice the effect of their behavior on the physical environment, it is in early social interactions that infants most readily perceive the consequence of their actions. People have perceptual characteristics that virtually assure that infants will orient toward them. They are visually contrasting and moving faces. They produce sound, provide touch, and have interesting smells. In addition, people engage with infants by exaggerating their facial expressions and inflecting their voices in ways that infants find fascinating. But most importantly, these antics are responsive to infant vocalizations, facial expressions, and gestures. People vary the pace and level of their behavior in response to infant actions. Consequently, early social interactions provide a context where infants can easily notice the effect of their behavior.